Well, hello and welcome back. In this particular video, I would like to demonstrate the techniques that can be used to effectively create what we would call a low flat bowl, sometimes known as a doggy dish. With this particular piece of clay, this is one that we've already coned and centered. We've created that process. It's still got a cone, so I'm going to finish centering it just as a quick rewind. And then we're going to take this into a shape that will be known as a low flat bowl. By referring to it as a doggy dish, I guess I'll say, well, if you have a small dog, this one will work. It might be good for a cat. So anyway, let's begin. So with the coning and centering process, if you recall, we're working at full speed and we have our hands wet for lubrication. So I'm going to finish centering this ball of clay. Again, that's my thumb and my index finger that are doing all the work at this point. Now, because I'm going to make this into a low flat bowl, I'm not as concerned about it being 100% centered, simply because I'm going to flatten this out into a thick pancake. And so now once I have this centered somewhat, now I'm going to switch hands and I'm going to finish the centering process by doing what we call the karate chop. That sort of looks like this. I brace my arms again. I tuck my arms in on my hips, so I'm braced. I'm still sitting just as though I'm riding a horse. I'm sitting in a saddle. I'm going to hold my right hand. I'm going to use my left hand, kind of make it look like a C, and I'm going to hold my right hand as such, with my left thumb at the base of my right thumb and my left fingers in my palm. And that's going to provide me with a controlled karate chop that I will perform with my right hand, mostly with my pinky and part of my palm. Water for lubrication. My pinky goes right across the center and I slowly push downward. I can see that the clay has come out, so I'm going to take a couple of fingers, my index finger and my middle finger, and I'm going to gently push that clay back in. I'm going to come back and I'm going to do a little more karate chop. Flatten this out some more. Alright, I see that clay is pushed out again. I'm going to come back in, push that back in a little bit. Alright. I'm going to finish a little bit of karate chop here. And as I do this, I'm going to move back and forth a little bit so that I can flatten out what will become the bottom of my low flat bowl. Okay? Now I'm going to push in again just to kind of recenter my outside wall. And that should be moving in a centered fashion. I can always, as part of the centering process, I can always bring my left hand in and hold that firmly and push down against that so that my piece of clay is centered. Alright? Now, I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is going to involve making a mark, if you will. I'm going to leave the bottom of this bowl the thickness that it is. Actually, let's take a quick look at how to determine how thick that is. By holding the needle tool and placing it in the center, the wheel is stopped at this point, otherwise you'd gouge the clay. So by sticking the needle tool directly in the center of the clay and placing a finger against it, pulling it back out, I can see here that the thickness of my clay is approximately a ½ inch. That's okay for the bowl that we're making, for the purpose that it's going to serve. That hole will seal up once again as I continue my process, but I can go right back over that with my right middle finger, my right longest and strongest, and I'm moving from the center to the outside, and from the outside back to the center 2 or 3 times. That's all I need. What this process does is I'm gently compressing the clay that I had stretched out. I'm Okay, so now the bottom of my bowl, in essence, is flat, and I've compressed the clay so that it doesn't cause any S-cracks later on as it's drying. So now what I have, I've established the thickness, that's about 1/2 inch all the way across. I've compressed the bottom of my bowl, and now I need to create a little bit of what's going to become the wall. So I like to do this with a low flat bowl, and this is just great practice. Using your needle tool, it's a good idea if you just create a line or a mark. Okay, I can say that, all right, I'd like the bottom of my bowl to be this wide. The inside of that circle becomes the bottom of my bowl. What's outside of the circle is going to become the wall of my bowl. So, you can vary that depending upon how much wall and how big of a bowl you want. You can change the location of that line. I'm going to go with that one. If you wanted to change it, you can simply press that down and touch that clay again with the needle tool. I like to do this off to the right-hand side with the needle tool angled so that the clay flows through the tip of the needle tool. You do not want to do this on the opposite side with the needle tool touching the clay over here, say at 9 o'clock. You want to do it on the right side with the needle tool at about 3 o'clock. This is going to provide you with the advantage that you need, and it will not cause you any problems. Now what I need to do is I'm going to start pushing that wall, the clay that's here at the outside, I'm going to start pushing that inward, and the clay will move upward. It's going to happen simply because I have my hands braced, and with my right middle finger touching the bat, firmly touching the bat, I'm going to slowly, and my index finger is there as well, so as the clay moves upward, it's touching my index finger as well, and you can see that the wall is starting to form. So as I've done this slowly, you can see now that I've taken what used to be as a flat, thick pancake, and now I've given it some bit of a wall. Well, now we want to straighten out that wall and make it look more intentional. So now I'm going to cross my thumbs, so I'm braced together, my forearms are braced, and I'm going to take my left longest and strongest on the inside, holding my left finger still while lifting my right middle finger and index finger upward. I'm straightening out the wall of the clay. You can see now how I've pulled that a little bit, straightened out the outside wall. It's a little bit more uniform. The inside wall is still straight. I'm going to do that one more time. It is important when you do this, you do not need to move your left hand. Okay? The only hand you need to move is your right hand, and you're just lifting it up a little bit. Your left finger can stay stationary because you're pulling the clay against it. This will be different when you're pulling a taller piece of clay, and you have to move both of them together. So, once I have this, I've now pulled this to about the same thickness as what the bottom is, about 1/2 inch. Now I want to take and compress the rim because I'm saying to myself, I'm done with this pot. I'm going to make a C with my index finger and my thumb of my left hand, and that little C, I'm just going to touch it. I'm just holding the clay. Clay is moving in between my thumb and finger. Now I'm going to take my index finger of my right hand and connecting them together, I'm going to gently push down at the rim to clean up all the loose clay, and I lift it right off when I did that. Go inside, on the outside, and in essence, I've just formed a low, flat bowl. I go in with a sponge. I clean all the loose water and clay, which we know water and clay mixture is slip. I clean all the loose stuff from the inside. I take the sponge and I gently hold it over the rim. That cleans up the loose stuff there. I can do the same thing on the outside. Okay, and in essence, I have just formed a low, flat bowl. The last couple things that I'd like to do, I've gone through the process. I've pulled the wall up a little bit so we have a shallow bowl. Okay, I've cleaned up the rim and the excess water and slip, and now I want to trim out the base edge a little bit. I like to do that with the wood modeling tool. This is a very versatile tool for a potter throwing at the wheel. I like to use the angled tip and holding the tool with both hands, and my hands being braced again on my leg, on my thighs. I touch the tip gently to the back, and I slowly push inward against the clay. The point of contact is at about 4 o'clock. I have the number 4 here. About 4 o'clock. Again, just like the needle tool, the tip of the wood modeling tool is pointing away from me. I do not want to do this over here on the opposite side. I want to do it over here at about 4 o'clock. And you can see that the clay is being trimmed away at the bottom of my pot. And I'm getting rid of all that loose stuff. Note too, very, very importantly, the wheel speed. When we coned and centered, we did that at full speed. I stopped the wheel to check the thickness, and then I reset the wheel speed somewhere on a slow to medium speed, and that's where I'm still working. We don't want to be running this at full speed because we've now created a pot, and we want to be able to control that shape. So, still with my needle tool, I'm going to use that to clean up that outer edge, and once again, trim a little bit of clay away from the base, and that gives it just a little bit of a finished look to it. Alright, and in essence, we now have a low flat bowl. If I'm satisfied with that, I can lift that off and see that we do have a low flat bowl. The remaining portion of the cleanup and some trimming will be done at a later time, but in essence, this is just a low flat bowl or a doggy dish. So, make sure you follow the steps and you can be successful at making a low flat bowl. Thanks.